So, we saw together that we create different types of plans for our project before we execute the project. And when we are done planning, then we are ready to go on with the project, right? It's a good idea if we have a roadmap for our project, something that shows us which way to go, what to do, and all of that. How do you see that roadmap based on what we've learned from the PMBOK guide? What we create here is called baseline. That's a baseline for our performance. It's something that shows us what we're going to do. It's very simple. And now, what do you think we should have in our baselines for performance? As you remember, we have different areas here, different domains, and for each of them we create plans, we think about every aspect, and we prepare ourselves. Now, what happens here is that when we want to run the project, the main baselines that we need for performance are for scope, time, and cost. Those three together. And what we have is very simple. It can be something like this. Remember the list of all activities inside our WBS? It shows us the scope of work. Scope is reflected through the work breakdown structure. And then we can have multiple columns to show the start and finish date, that's about time, and another column that shows our budget, that's cost. So something like this would be our roadmap for the project, and it's our performance baseline. The word baseline is used to refer to anything that we take a snapshot of. Well, the baseline is the snapshot itself. The idea is that when, for example, we schedule our project, those start and finish dates can change all the time. It's a dynamic concept. Everything here is dynamic. But to have the roadmap, we take a screenshot of it and we will use that fixed concept for a duration of time, as long as it can work. Now, the idea is that we can create baselines for anything, and practically we do that. Any document that you create will have baselines. For example, think about your, project charter, okay? The first time that you create a project charter and someone signs and approves the project charter, you can consider that a baseline. It is approved. It's an important point in time for that document. And then after that, we don't want to change it without any special considerations. It is baseline, so it has to be fixed, and any changes to that document has to go through a special process to make sure that the document is okay and it's consistent with everything else. You remember the idea of integration. So practically we have baselines for all documents, but still this baseline for performance is very special, which is a combination of baselines for time, cost, and scope. That's our roadmap. Now, a question. When we say that these three areas are enough as the roadmap for our performance, does it mean that the other ones don't matter? The way I put it, you probably say they do matter, but so how are they reflected in our roadmap? The point is that all of them, the final output, the practical things that you get from each of them that can be directly used in the project will be reflected in those three, in time, cost, and scope. For example, think about risks. You identify the risk, you realize that someone may fall down. That's a terrible thing. So you think about the responses that you can have. For example, you're going to build handrails, you're going to change the sequence of activities, you're going to ensure the site, and many other things. Those things will go to your list here, so they will change the scope. They will have start and finish dates, that's time, and they will have some budgets. So everything that we need in practice will be reflected in these three. And the rest of the plans that we have for risk management work like the source of these practical things. They are not used directly, they are used to create these practical things. And that's why this is our performance baseline. Was it too abstract or was it okay? All right. So, what we did so far was that first we initiated the project, we prepared ourselves for the project. And do you remember the two things that we do to initiate the project? The first one is that we think about the reasons why we are doing the project and we document it in the project charter along with other information, of course. Then we try to understand everyone who's involved in the project, people who have some type of interest in the project and can impact the project. And what's the name of those people? Stakeholders. And we create a document called Stakeholder Register. Those are the two things that we do to initiate the project when we prepare ourselves for the project. And when we are prepared, then we start planning. And as you remember, we go through all different areas that we have in the PMBOK guide, in the project management. We plan all of them, and finally, at the end of planning, we will create our performance baselines, which includes 3 different elements. What are those 3 elements in the performance baseline? Baseline for time, baseline for cost, and baseline for scope. So we have the roadmap, and we are ready to execute the project. Great. Now, before I finish this lesson, I have one question. Does it make sense to think that we can create a plan, a roadmap, and then use it for the whole duration of the project, for example, for a year or 2 years, and expect it to be realistic? If no, how can we deal with that?